This is going to be a talking head episode, so feel free to just listen while you go about your day. I don't normally do something like this, but this time I really felt the need to. This video came to be because of a video that Mr. Matty Plays posted on his YouTube channel. A link to that video is in the description. That video was taking a skeptical look at Starfield. In that video, Matty was speaking to another YouTuber named Luke Stevens. There were a lot of things said in that video that I'm going to address, and I'm going to do it point by point. So the conversation started off with introductions, but quickly devolved into a negative direction when Luke stated that everything that he has seen so far for Starfield looks lackluster at best and just bad at worst. That statement put me off right away, but I try not to judge a book by its cover, so I said to myself, Kane, let's just listen and see where this goes. I have to say, it didn't get better, but for the sake of completeness, let's continue. Luke then continued to say that Bethesda's last couple of outings, meaning games, were not great, and that the last one was borderline criminal. So he didn't see any reason to get hyped about Starfield. To be clear, Luke was referring to Fallout 4 and Fallout 76 in that order. Now, to say Fallout 4 was not great is just plain wrong. Did Bethesda catch a bit of flack over the voice protagonist? Yes. But, not to put too fine a point on it, Fallout 4 made so much more money than any of the previous Fallout games, so that alone says they did something right. To call 76 borderline criminal is also a very big overstatement. I understand that 76's launch was not good, and that the current state of the game is still not the greatest, but I will say that Luke's statement is flat out wrong. 76, for all its faults, is still a good game. To Matty's credit, he did try to change the tone real quick because while he might agree with Luke on the 76 front, he didn't seem to agree with it as a whole. So he asked Luke, what was the first thing he saw that made him not feel good about Starfield? Luke then started to backtrack a bit by going into the timeline of Starfield being known about in the community. He said that even though Fallout 4 wasn't for everybody, it was still a good game, which is contrary to his opening statement, but I digress. Luke then said after 76 and the first showcase where the gunplay was lackluster and the graphics just didn't hold up in 2022 against other competition, there were performance issues, even in the trailer, and for him that built a very negative case. I will touch on this in a bit. Matty continued by asking if there was a specific feature he was hoping would be better. He also added that he did agree with Luke on the gunplay. Luke then made the point that criticizing a game for one thing is just dumb, and that you have to look at multiple variables. Luke said that the gunplay didn't look good for a showcase. He then added that they have been working on this game for a decade, and the pieces that they showed off, and I quote, left most people feeling like, ugh, maybe it's not that great, but it's got 200,000 lines of dialogue. Maybe it's not that great, but it's a big RPG and the world's going to be interesting. You know, those are just diversions and deflections. You gotta call it like you see it. Luke then said that all of what he saw made it hard for him to defend his opinion. I heard that and still kept calm, because I knew there was more. I will address that quote in a bit too, since that part will become more relevant shortly. Then, in true Matty fashion, kind of defended Luke's viewpoint by saying he wasn't hating on Starfield, but was just calling it like he saw it. Matty then turned to the game's mechanics and how it doesn't seem to differentiate itself from other BGS titles, and Luke agreed. Luke carried on by saying that the 1,000 Planets does make it stand out, but they have not shown that, and they should have shown that in the showcase. He clarified by stating that what was shown was not the stuff that BGS is known for doing well, and that they only talked about the stuff that BGS is known for doing well. Luke wasn't sure if it was a marketing thing or a miscommunication between the marketing and the devs, but he thought it was strange that they didn't show off the things that would make this game stand out. Matty moved right into that by saying that he and others in the community feel that Bethesda is taking a quantity over quality approach in regards to the 1,000 planets. Matty then went on what I would call a mini rant about how he believes players will feel underwhelmed by the many planets if they don't have stuff going on. He then proceeded to ask Luke how he felt about it. Luke then quoted Todd Howard saying that we can do anything, we just can't do everything, and he feels that this is them trying to do everything without being able to manage it. He then clarified that Todd has not changed as a developer and that the 1,000 planets must serve a purpose. Luke further clarified by stating the reasons that you put 1,000 planets in the game, like resource collection, enemies that hardgate the endgame, and so on. He then said that if those are the reasons, that is fine, but if it is something else, it is a concern because any developer can create 1,000 spheres for people to walk around on, but creating a system that justifies creating those planets is another matter. We are getting close to the crux of the issue here, but I will wait just a bit more, so again, I will hold my 2 cents for just a bit longer. As Luke continued on, he made it very clear that he was not happy with Bethesda not really showing the things that he thought they should have been showing in the showcase. Matty then drove the conversation into the RPG elements and that Bethesda seems to be getting back to its roots there, even if, as he said, that has not been their strongest point. Luke again took us on a brief history tour. He said that BGS is putting out one big game every 5 to 6 years. He continued starting with Skyrim, saying everyone loved it, and then they experimented with Fallout 4, which didn't connect with as many people, which was different. Still good, but different in a lot of ways, and then 76, which he believed was nothing more than a cash grab, probably came about as a result of the owners of ZeniMax wanting to push it out the door to make the company more enticing for a buyout. He clarified his position on 76, saying that he does not believe that it is indicative of what BGS is, but rather the result of a lack of leadership. He continued to clarify that he felt that Bethesda was listening to player feedback by going back to the things that really worked for them in the past. Luke said that he feels they are taking more of an approach like they did with Skyrim rather than Fallout 4 or 76. He then moved into the graphics and animations, saying that while they are better in Starfield, they don't hold up to the competition of even 2 to 3 years ago. He then said that whenever someone throws out what he considers an excuse, like the amount of dialogue or it's going to be a massive game, all of that is deflection and in some ways an admittance of the problem. He then caught himself and said, we're not saying the game is going to be awful because the graphics are outdated, he's just saying the graphics are outdated. He then said that to deflect from that fact does not hold Bethesda's feet to the fire in a way that is helpful. He said they need to be put under creative pressure, otherwise we see what we are already seeing with modders already working on bug fixes for the game that has not even released yet. I do want to address this point real quick. First, they are both ignoring the fact that modders have been doing this for a very long time. There are unofficial patches for every BGS game, and if you go back and look at even older titles like Fallout 1 and 2 and Tactics, those also have unofficial patches. This isn't a new thing, and I think that because they don't realize this, their views are skewed. Not to dog on them for their age, but they are quite young, and with that may not be as experienced with the modding scene as, say, myself. I started gaming in an era when all we had was consoles, and I use that term very loosely, and arcade games. PC gaming didn't really start to take off till I was in my late teens. That was also the time when modding games really started to take off. Matty then started talking about the fact that Bethesda is arguably the smallest AAA studio around, but Starfield does look better when you compare it to the work they have done previously. He then added that once you start comparing to other non-BGS titles, it doesn't stand up as well. Luke chimed in, stating that the reason for that is because Bethesda is using tools that are really a relic of the past. He continued by saying that it isn't easy to upgrade an engine that is old and outdated while also working on new games. He cited some developers like CD Projekt Red walking away from its own engine as a reason to look at other engines and other companies that develop game engines like Epic's Unreal Engine. Matty jumped in saying that while Bethesda did upgrade its engine, it still feels behind the times. However, he did come to Bethesda's defense a bit because while graphically it is behind, the modability is top shelf and no other engine comes close to it in that regard. Luke then clarified his position by saying, well, if nobody says anything, they won't fix it. While that is a true enough statement, I also think it is very much an oversimplification of the issue. He then continued that it worries him that people are sort of excusing Bethesda's lack of polish and refinement. Luke continued by saying that for the broader base of players that don't mod, it is troublesome to see Bethesda get away with something that would get other studios raked across the coals for. So now we're at the crux of the matter, and I want to address the statements made earlier by Luke. From my perspective, his issues stem from Bethesda 1. Not changing engines, and 2. Not showing what he thought they should show off in their showcase. First, from the engine standpoint, Bethesda has no reason to change from it and say go with Unreal Engine, for example. The reason being, there is so much that Bethesda's engine is capable of doing that engines like Unreal are simply not able to do. Does Unreal look better from a graphic standpoint? Yes. However, that is really the only leg up that the Unreal Engine has in this fight. Most people don't know this, but Unreal Engine is also a very old engine. It has been around for a very long time, but is also a very limited engine. Not everything that we as Bethesda gamers can do can be done in that engine. If all you care about is how it looks, then you are not really playing the game for what it is. Games are meant to be more than just looks. Point 2. The gunplay, if you ask me, is far better than any BTS game has ever been. Does it hold up to other shooter games? No, because Starfield is not a shooter-first game, but rather it is just part of the game, and it does what it needs to do in that setting. Comparing Starfield to other games is like comparing apples and oranges. Aside from having a similar shape and both being a fruit, they are very different. The same goes for Starfield and any other game. Point 3. The 1,000 Planet issue. Both of them completely missed the point made by Todd Howard. Whether they missed it on accident or on purpose is difficult to say. Either way, their problems or worries about it are unwarranted. Todd Howard has stated numerous times that he wants this game to be as realistic as possible, both with what we get for tech and in size and scope. The universe is a big place, and there are a lot of planets. But guess what? Not every planet has something interesting happening on it. Some are kind of boring, and that is the goal for this game. The beauty of a BGS game is that there is no one way to play. Most games only give you a handful of choices, while BGS games say, you know what, you can go this way, but if you want to, you can go that way, that's okay too. That is why BGS stands out against the rest. So with that being said, does that mean Bethesda is pushing quantity over quality? No. I can't stress that enough. Starfield is the biggest endeavor that BGS has undertaken ever. There is so much more to this game, and no matter of graphical weakness will be able to turn the scales in a bad direction. Starfield is a game that has something for everyone, and the best part of it is that if there is something you don't care about, guess what? You won't have to do it. At the end of the day, Bethesda has proven time in and time out that they can create games that appeal to a large amount of players, and that they can build worlds that look amazing while still creating a story that can draw you into the world they have created. My biggest problem with that video is that it creates a dialogue around something that wasn't needed, and all something like that does is create discourse in the community. When you publicize things like modders are working on bug fixes, graphics not meeting the standards of other games, and so on, all it does is foster hate and brings out those who don't even care about it just so they can have a voice too. Again, I apologize, but I could not just sit by and let that video go unanswered. So much wrong was said in that video that I had to address it just to try to stem the tide a bit. I am not saying Bethesda is perfect, but they do a pretty good job, and if this video was made post-launch and the things they said held water, we would not be having this conversation. Anyway, thanks for listening to my rants, and let me know what you thought of the video. Was I right for feeling like I had to respond? Did you agree with Matty and Luke? Sound off in the comments below. While you're at it, like, subscribe, and above all else, share this video because it is important to provide another side to this. Anyway, thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you in the next one.